Okay, this is great. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's still late outside. Can you say tonight anymore?
Thank you for having us.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure. So there's been a request multiple times to record these classes and put them up on YouTube. Sandy, I know that you're on the screen. It's recording the screen, but I don't think it records you unless you speak. I don't think you won't be on camera at all. So if you have any questions that you don't want to be recorded, wait till after the class. If you have any comments or jokes you want to say that you don't feel it's for public consumption, wait till after the class. Tonight's class is not yet sponsored. Anybody would like to sponsor that? It's still available. Okay. Jewish at heart. I do mitzvot without feeling. I didn't have a choice. Does that count as a mitzvah? Does an unintentional transgression count? We're going to learn about Judaism's double standard on the importance of intent. It's a very important class. We'll see soon. So the introduction is like this. Moses comes down from the mountain, commands the Jewish people two very important mitzvot, two very important commandments. Shabbos, the Sabbath, and building the Mishkan, the tabernacle, which is the mobile home version of the Holy Temple, which later was built in Jerusalem. From the proximity of these two commandments to each other, the sages derive many laws. In this talk by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe will delve into the essential difference between fulfilling a mitzvah and transgressing, doing a good thing and the opposite, in relation to the intent behind the action. So this is from a talk delivered by the Lubavitcher Rebbe wintertime 1962 or maybe 63. Okay. Section A, Shabbat and building the Mishkan. Michael, can you read source 1, which is Exodus chapter 35, 1 through 5, and 30, 33.
Moses gathered the entire Jewish people and told them, "These are what God has commanded to do. For 6 days you shall work, and the seventh shall be holy, a day of rest for God. Whoever works on this day shall die. Do not kindle fire in your encampments on the Shabbat."
Perfect. All right, thank you, Michael. Okay, that's the beginning of this week's Torah portion. It starts off with a commandment about keeping the seventh day of the week as a day of rest, a holy day. Fine. Continuing further, Barry.
Building the Mishkan, Moses told the entire Jewish people, "This is what God commanded to say. Bring from among yourselves a donation for God. Any generous-hearted person shall bring God a donation of gold, silver, and bronze." Then Moses said to the Jewish people, "See, God has chosen Bezalel, son of Uri, the son of Shur of the tribe of Judah. God has filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom and understanding and knowledge, and with all kinds of skills to make artistic designs for work in gold, silver, and bronze, and to cut and set stones, to work in wood, and to engage in all kinds of calculated work."
Perfect. I think if I change the setting over here, it might be beneficial to everybody. Okay. Thank you, Barry. The key words of what Barry just read is actually going to be the keywords for the entire class tonight is calculated work, the last two words, calculated work. So owing to the proximity of these laws to each other, the keeping the Shabbos, Shabbat, and building the Mishkan, our sages understood that the prohibited acts, which are prohibited on Shabbos, are the same acts that were done in the construction of the Mishkan. When God commanded the Jewish people to build the Mishkan, they needed to do 39 different acts of labor. Immediately prior, God tells them to keep my Shabbat, to keep my Shabbos, to teach them that although the Mishkan is holy and important, the holiness of Shabbos comes first. The sages learned from this that these 39 acts, for example, sowing, reaping, carrying from one domain to another, and so on, are the acts which are prohibited on Shabbos. Okay, now let's talk about this calculated labor business. In describing the labor required to build the Mishkan, the Torah uses the word calculated work or calculated labor, meleches machshavas. This means that the act of building and creating the Mishkan requires precision, foresight, and attention to detail, just like you would build anything that you would actually care about, right? They could certainly not be done haphazardly without intent or by mistake. The sages derive from this another Shabbos law. In order for an act to be prohibited, it must be calculated labor, a deliberate act, meaning only a prohibited act committed on Shabbos with purposeful intent is liable as a transgression. An act done without full intent on to desecrate the Shabbos, like dragging a bench over the ground and plowing the earth as an unintended byproduct of that act, is permitted. Meaning, quickly to explain that, plowing on Shabbos is prohibited. You can't take a sickle and start plowing the ground in order to sow seeds. In fact, any sort of indent in the dirt is a problem. But if you're not intending to do something wrong, you're trying to do something else. The example that we just gave is dragging a bench. You're trying to drag a heavy bench over the dirt to pull it over somewhere else. You want to sit down in the shade, whatever. If it makes a ditch, a little like groove in the ground, it's not a problem because you're not trying to do that. You're trying to pull a bench. So it's not intentional work. Unless the plowing that is being done in this case is absolutely guaranteed, meaning if it's for sure going to happen, then it's actually a problem. But that's a different story. The reason behind this is because there was no express intent to do the plowing. The person simply wanted to move a bench. So the required deliberate intent was lacking. Okay, let's read the Rebbe's words. Do the transgressions require intent? Elliot, hopefully Sandy will be able to hear this time.
Regarding the law that unintended violations are exempt from punishment, there is a disagreement among the halachic authorities. The Sheiltot maintains that this exception only applies to the laws of Shabbat. There is a unique clause in the laws of Shabbat which says that only calculated actions are forbidden. And if a violation wasn't the person's actual intention, the act doesn't qualify as calculated. But in other areas of Jewish laws, Sheiltot maintains that even if the violation wasn't one's express intention, he is still liable for the act. However, most halachic authorities disagree with Sheiltot and are of the opinion that unintended violations are exempt from punishment in all areas of Jewish law. Also, before we go on, what is Sheiltot? I'm sure
Sheiltot is a book of Jewish law. It's the basis of Jewish law.
Did you know that? I didn't know.
No.
Okay.
It's not a popular. It's not so well known.
I was totally new to me. I'm like, huh?
So there's a special clause in the laws of Shabbat that only calculated. You learn something every day. Right?
Did you know about Sheiltot?
And we should get a Sheiltot to put on the shelf. Maybe people can learn it.
New to you too? Yeah. Okay. So we're all kind of.
It's again, it's not a well-known work of Jewish law.
We'll have to get a copy.
Yeah, right.
At the library.
Saying actually, we have a whole code of Jewish law right here. These white books in English.
No Sheiltot in there.
Not I mean,
Okay.
Sheiltot is quoted in there, I'm sure, but
Oh.
okay. There's a special clause in the laws of Shabbat that only calculated actions can be considered violations. Most authorities are of the opinion that even for other areas of Jewish law, meaning not only Shabbos, only an expressly intended action is considered a transgression, a sin. A person who didn't specifically intend the forbidden consequence is exempt. Okay, so let's delve into this a little more. Shrek, can you read? Do mitzvot require intent? By the way, these hamantash here are delicious. You can enjoy. It's fine. It's really open.
Regarding positive mitzvot, there is a disagreement about whether intent is required in order to fulfill them. The consensus conclusion is that there are some types of mitzvot that are fulfilled even if the person did them without mitzvah intent. Moreover, there are some mitzvot that even if a person was compelled to do them against his will, he has still fulfilled the mitzvah.
Perfect. Okay, so there is this idea that in many mitzvot, many of the commandments, many of the laws, doing the right thing without intending to do it is considered as if you did it. So let's see that in source 2. This is Alter Rebbe, Code of Jewish Law, or Chaim. Actually, that's the books I just showed you. That's the Code of Jewish Law. Okay, all mitzvot require intent in order to fulfill the obligation of doing that mitzvah. If one did it without intending to fulfill his obligation, doing it in passing or with a different intent, not for this mitzvah, they have not fulfilled their biblical obligation. That's one opinion. Others say that the mitzvot do not require intent, and even when done in passing, one has fulfilled their obligation post facto. Post facto means that one is required to have intent. They're supposed to have intent. They have to have intent. And many mitzvot, according to this opinion, if you didn't have intent, you just did an act haphazardly, totally not paying attention, of the act of a mitzvah, you have fulfilled the obligation. And source 3, I'll go with this as well. This is a different area in the Code of Jewish Law. It's another example. One who ate matzah, Pesach is coming up, Passover. One who ate matzah, which is an important mitzvah, without intent, meaning he did not intend on fulfilling his obligation by eating this matzah, has fulfilled his obligation. So we see here by matzah that one can eat the matzah without intending to fulfill the commandment of God, that God commanded us to eat matzah on Passover. Not in my mind. All I know is that I like matzah, tastes good, and I want to eat it on Passover. It happens to be Passover night, fine, whatever. They didn't have the right intention. Didn't have any intention, let's say. They still fulfilled the mitzvah. Therefore, even if he did not wish to eat matzah, and Gentiles or bandits forced him to, he has fulfilled his obligation because even unwillingly, his body benefited from it. That's a halachic reasoning, and we're not going to get
That
into
is
that.
a real hypothetical situation. I'm going to force you to, I'm not.
So if you remember, I said a story once about bandits forcing somebody to eat matzah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we'll say it at a different time.
This happened?
I'll turn off with the Rebbe's words over here, page 5. The Rebbe says, with regards to intent, there is a difference between positive and negative mitzvot. What's a positive and negative mitzvah, just before we get confused? Positive mitzvah means it's a mitzvah that God says to us, do this, do this, do this. Put on tefillin, keep Shabbat, light Shabbat candles, eat in the sukkah on the holiday of Sukkot.
I think we talked about a couple weeks ago, like they're active mitzvah.
Active, yes.
And a negative.
The negative is a passive mitzvah. It's a mitzvah where God tells us not to do something.
So it's pretty easy to not do something.
Right, you just don't do it. A lot of times it's actually very hard to not do something.
Right. Mhm.
Don't eat not kosher, So there's a difference between positive and negative mitzvot.
Mhm.
With a negative mitzvah, if the actor, the one who did it, had no intent to transgress, he did not violate any prohibition at all. However, a person who performed a positive mitzvah without intent has fulfilled the mitzvah. Okay. Now we have a big question over here. So section B, counterintuitive. Sandy, can you read for us the Rebbe, page 6? Can you turn the volume up a little bit in the upper right corner of the PBR? Perfect.
All right. Tell me if you can hear me okay.
Perfectly. Excellent.
Okay. Separation from holiness should be easier than connection. The difference requires explanation. Seemingly, the reverse should be true. A mitzvah is a connection. The effect of a mitzvah is that the person performing it and the physical items used to perform it become connected to God. A transgression has the opposite effect. It disconnects the person and any associated physical items from godliness. Before being associated with the performance of a mitzvah or with a transgression, all physical things fall under the category of kalipat noga.
Just keep going.
The category is mostly negative, so all physical things are naturally closer to negativity than holiness. It therefore appears logical that it should be easier to detach something physical from godliness than to connect it. How then is it the case that detaching requires actual intent, while connection can be achieved even unintentionally?
Perfect. Thank you, Sandy. Okay, let me just explain something before we go further. This term where klipat noga might throw people off. It explains in the book of the Tanya, which is the foundational work of the Chabad philosophy, which Sandy, we learned together. And we've had this term when we were learning it. We had it first chapter 1, and then it was elaborated on chapters 6 and 7 and 8. The world, the universe, as God created it, is divided into 3 categories. Everything that exists falls into one of these 3 categories. Okay, there's Kedusha. Kedusha means holiness, things that are holy. Then there's another category called Kalipa. Kalipa literally means a shell. It's something that conceals the godly truth, the godly reality. And there's 2 categories within Kalipa. There's Klipat Noga, which we just mentioned, and there's Shalosh Klipat Tatmeot, the 3 impure Klipas. Klipat Noga means a shell of light. That's a weird translation, but in simple English, there are things in this world which are absolutely concealing the reality that God is everywhere and is everything and creating everything and so on and so forth. That's the reality. There are things in this that exist that absolutely conceal that. You look at them and they say, nope, nothing to see here. No God. What falls into this category? Evil. Straight up evil, sin, negative, passive mitzvos. Anything that denies God's existence or power or presence falls in this category. Then there's this middle category. But let me just back a second. Kedusha, holiness, is things that reveal that show the true reality. A mitzvah, a Torah scroll, a synagogue. Okay. Then there's this middle category, klipat noga, which these are things that aren't one or the other. They're not holy. They don't reveal God's presence, and they're not evil. They don't conceal God's presence. They're just what falls in that category. Most things in this world. Good example: food. Is food evil? No, it's just food. If it's kosher food, an apple is different than pork, but food is food. It's not evil. It's not holy. It just is. Okay, and this is getting its energy, its existence through klipat noga. This is a force which it can go one way or the other. A person who eats a piece of cake, kosher cake, and after that they use this energy to do something wrong. They took the energy that was in that food and they lowered it down into a category which conceals godliness. If a person eats kosher food and then afterwards they use that energy that they got from that food to do a mitzvah, to pray, to learn Torah, to do something nice, they just elevate it into holiness. But the Rebbe is asking a very important question.
But this chocolate hamantash.
A chocolate hamantash, and we're using it to have energy to listen to a class.
Exactly.
Right. In this physical world, we are physical creatures. We have ego, we have lust, desires, and so on. Seemingly, our default choice should be materialism, physical world, because connecting to holiness demands rising above ourselves. It's not hard and not easy. I mean, putting aside our egos. It would have made sense that in order to transgress something wrong, we don't need any special intent. It's so easy. It's already part of our psyche. It's part of who we are, that we're part of a world that, in a sense, conceals godliness. It should be so easy to sin. It should be so easy to sin, meaning not easy. It's not the right word. It should be so natural for us, and it should make sense that when we do something wrong, even without intent, it should drag us down. And it should be considered something wrong, even without intent. But to do a mitzvah, to connect to holiness, which we have to break ourselves and rise above our natural inclinations, we need to have deliberate intent. That's what you would think. Yet in reality, we're seeing the opposite is true. Compelled performance, page 7. Michael, can you read this? And also the next paragraph, source 4.
Nevertheless, we are told that a mitzvah can be performed even without intent. Moreover, sometimes a mitzvah can be performed even against the person's will. Regarding the mitzvah of charity, Talmud relates how Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai compelled verbally his nephews to give to charity.
Okay, so let's read that story from the Talmud. Go ahead.
Rabbi Yochanan saw in a dream that his sister's sons needed to lose 700 gold coins over the next year. He compelled them throughout the year to give money to charity. At the end of the year, they were left with 17 of those 700 coins, which he didn't manage to get them to donate. The day before Yom Kippur, the Caesar sent agents to seize 17 coins for taxes. Rabbi Yochanan told them, "Do not worry that they will take more from you. They only took the 17 remaining coins." "How do you know?" they asked him. "I saw it in a dream," he answered them, and told them his dream.
Perfect, thank you. So we see from here that although Rabbi Yochanan had to compel his nephews to give charity, to give tzedakah, in heaven it was considered a mitzvah of charity. They did the right thing. This guy is sitting there and he's saying, "You should give this to charity." Like, why? No, please, just give it. It was for their own good. They're going to lose 700 coins regardless. So either the Caesar's going to come and take it, it can be robbed from them, or the best thing is to give it to charity, right? So they're compelled to do it by his word, but it's still considered an act of charity, a mitzvah of charity. And the government only came after the last 17 coins. Barry, can you read page 8, where the Rebbe's words, and then source 5?
Sure. We even find that the mitzvah of charity can be fulfilled without a person's knowledge. The law is that if a person loses a coin, or a person finds it and derives sustenance from it, the one who lost it has fulfilled the mitzvah of charity. since ultimately he provided the poor person with sustenance. This creates a connection with God, even though the person had no intent or knowledge of physical act without any spiritual element.
Excellent. So let's see the source for that. This is from Rashi's commentary on the Torah, from Leviticus chapter 5. Go ahead.
Rabbi Elazar, is it Eliezer?
This is Elazar.
Elazar,
Yeah.
son of Azariah, says, when you are cutting your produce in your field and you forget some in the field, the verse says, for this you shall be blessed. Deuteronomy 24. The Torah blesses one who unwittingly did a mitzvah. From here we can say that if a person was carrying a coin in their clothing and it fell out and was found by a poor person, God rewards him.
This is crazy. You're walking down the street. Not you. This shouldn't happen to you. So a person walking down the street, and the phone starts ringing. They go, "Oh, let me get my phone," and their wallet comes flying out of their pocket, but they don't even notice. And they pick up the phone. Hello. Oh, sales call. Put it back in his pocket. Continues walking. And he gets to, he went on a nice 30-mile walk. Took him a few hours, and he got to the place where he needed to go. And he goes to the store that he wanted to go to. This, I don't know, chocolate store. Why not? And he goes to the register. He gives this beautiful chocolate he wanted to buy, and said, "That'll be $20. It's good chocolate." And he reaches for his wallet. Where's my wallet? Because the whole, hokey pokey dance that we do when we lose things. Can't find it. He looks on the floor. He looks in the. What happened to his wallet? He lost it back on 38th Street, right? It's gone. He may never see it again. What happened to his wallet? He's in the store freaking out. But somebody walking down the street, poor person, they're cold, they're hungry, and they see this wallet on the floor. He goes, "Well, it was a wallet." He picks it up. The guy didn't leave his ID in the wallet. Nothing. Whatever. He forgot his ID. There's no way to indicate whose wallet this belongs to. And there's $400 in there. Wow. He wants, he's a nice person. He wants to return it, but he doesn't know who to return it to. There's no indication, nothing. So he decides he'll keep the money. He goes to the store. He buys himself some food. He eats it. So we look at this story. We say, wow, it's really awful this guy lost his wallet, but it's really nice that this guy got some food to eat. In heaven, they're looking at this guy who lost his wallet, and they're seeing him shining. Why is he shining? Because he did a mitzvah. Again, mitzvah means connection. He created a connection with God, an everlasting connection that can't be broken. What did he do? He gave money to a poor person. No, he didn't. He lost his wallet. Well, mitzvahs don't always need intent. That's the idea. And here we see it very strongly. So, again, why is it that a mitzvah to do something, to connect with God, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do, you just need to do this act, and not necessarily do you need to have intent. But to do something wrong, which is, should be very natural to us because we're very, physical people, or this is the world we live in, to do something that's not godly is not so hard to do. It's part of who we are. That needs intent. If there's no intent, he didn't do anything wrong. What's going on here? Okay. Let's read the Rebbe's words, page 8. An unintentional transgression is no transgression. Elliot, take it away.
Regarding transgression, even though material matters are naturally separated from godliness, and a physical act of transgression was performed with them, since the transgression was unintentional, it has no effect. Not only is the person exempt from punishment, but even a transgression is not considered to have occurred, and the action has no negative metaphysical effect at all.
Perfect. So the idea that that the transgression doesn't result in a punishment is important. I was about to see. Continue with source 6. This is from the Tanya, chapter 24.
The various putrefying. The various purifying processes and punishments in purgatory. Wow, the alliteration in that translation, I don't know. Or in this world, i.e., the suffering of the soul in purgatory, or one suffering in this world, whose purpose is to purify the soul, correspond to the extent and specific nature of the blemish caused by the sin in the soul and its source in the supernal worlds. Each transgression has its appropriate punishment for the purpose of cleansing and removing the stain and blemish caused by that specific sin. Similarly, the blemish caused by the sins carrying the penalty of death at the hands of heaven, or karet, varies from one sin to another.
Okay. Thank you, Elliot. So, The Alter Rebbe, who wrote these words that we just read, explains that not all transgressions are equal. Some harm a person's relationship with God more than others, and they take more time and effort to rectify than less severe transgressions. We see that the punishment for a transgression, for a sin, reveals the extent of the harm done by the transgression. If an unintentional transgression is not liable for punishment, we must say that no harm has been done, for if there was, there would need to be a way to repair that harm. In Torah, in Judaism, in life, punishments, the Torah's punishments are not there to get back at us. God's not a little kid. Oh, you did something I didn't like, I'm going to get back at you. Ridiculous. Punishments are for the purpose of purifying the person who did something wrong. Because when this person does something wrong, there's something inside them that's not 100%. That's why they acted in a certain way. So there needs to be a degree of washing machine. They need to get clean a little bit. Sometimes going, if you have a stain on your hands, just wipe it off, right? Let's say it's a little bit stuck. Okay, gotta rub it off a little bit. Okay, agitate your skin a little bit. Let's say it's really, really stuck on there. You gotta scrub it off with, whatever, something really, really, it can be painful.
Lady Macbeth,
I don't know.
she's famous for saying in a play, "Out damn spot," because she couldn't get the stain off of her hand.
Yeah, exactly. If a person has a tattoo and they want to get rid of it, that's a whole different story, right? Yeah. So fitting with the type of transgression, of sin that a person did, depending on how deep the harm is, how deep the blemish is, so to speak, and the person, that's how intense the punishment needs to be to clean that up. We see that with a transgression that was done with that intent and there's no punishment, that means nothing is wrong. It's okay. So again, this is all just coming to strengthen the question. Read the next page 9 also, the little paragraph.
The Alter Rebbe states in Tanya that the punishment is commensurate with the negative metaphysical effect of the transgression. Therefore, the absence of any punishment proves that the act had no effect at all. Or had there been some effect, there would have been at least a light punishment. Seemingly, the reverse should be true.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's get to the answer. Section C, page 10. A statement which affects the entire day. Modeh ani. Before we even get into this, we have to know what Modeh ani is. If you open any prayer book, any Jewish prayer book, it's called a Siddur. Okay? Across the board, all different types of Jews. Doesn't matter if they're Sephardi or Ashkenazi, doesn't matter if they come from Italy or China or Israel or America. Siddur, the prayer book, across the board, always starts with the same thing, which is the Modeh ani. It's not even a prayer, it's more of an acknowledgement. It's like, how many words is it? I forgot how many words it was. I could count it, but it's not that long. But anyway,
Well,
makes sense.
Is that the prayer you say when you get up in the morning?
Yes, very good. Modeh ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayim shechazarta bi nishmati b'chemla rabbi amunasach. Totally right. Modeh ani lefanecha. I thank you. Melech chai v'kayim, the living and eternal King. Shechazarta bi nishmasi, that you return to me, my soul. Rabbi amunasach, great is your faithfulness. This is the first thing in the prayer book. When do you say it? At what point in the morning when you get to the synagogue? At what point in the prayer service do you say it? No. This is not said in synagogue, as Sandy just mentioned. It's not said even in your dining room, or in your living room, or in your study. It's said in your bedroom. It's not even said in your bedroom. It's said in bed. How long after you get up till you say it? Right away. When you open your eyes, the first thing that is supposed to come out of your mouth is this prayer. Say it in English also, but there's a certain importance to saying in Hebrew also as well. But the Modeh ani acknowledgement or thanking is the way a Jew is supposed to start their day. It's you start off on the right foot. It's not hard to do. It's literally 12 words, as we just counted multiple times. We can have an entire class about Modeh ani. We're not going to have one now, but maybe one day. But this is the basis of the Rebbe's explanation of this conundrum of the mitzvah versus transgression dilemma. Shver.
We're starting.
No, they're on page 10. The explanation.
This is the case only for,
What? You're on page 10?
on page 10. I'm sorry, Modani, the explanation. At the beginning of the day, every Jew connects himself to God through reciting Modani and other prayers. And this forges a connection with God that lasts all day. Therefore, even if the individual later performed a mitzvah act without any intent, that act is infused with a connection with God forged at the beginning of the day. This is similar to a law regarding consecrating a woman for marriage. If a man and woman were talking about marriage, and in the middle, the man gave the woman a valuable item without explicitly saying that it is for the purpose of consecrating her for marriage, the woman is still consecrated to be his wife.
Here, read source 7 as well. This is in the Talmud. Let's see what it was talking about.
Okay, so just the first
Source 7.
one who was discussing marriage or divorce with a woman and then gave her a bill of divorce or wedding ring without explicitly stating his intent. Rabbi Yossi says it is sufficient. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel that this is only when they are discussing the subject.
Okay. Thank you. Marriage and divorce are very important issues. The rabbis, the sages require that everything be done in a clear manner with no room for misunderstanding. This is heavy duty stuff here. We don't play games with this. The Talmud gives a fascinating case. This, my father-in-law just read. A man and woman are talking about marriage. They're discussing marrying each other, the idea. And then the man gives the woman a ring without saying a word. Generally, when in Jewish law, when a man and woman marry, the man has to say, which means you are consecrated to me with this ring, like the law of Moses in Israel. Okay, clearly explaining his intent. Person just willy-nilly walks up to a woman on the street, gives her a ring. What is that? Okay, thanks for the ring. Have a great day. The law is that this constitutes a valid act of marriage. This is they're not considered married because their prior conversation shows their intent. And this is the basis of the Rebbe's explanation. The Rebbe learns a lesson from here regarding the Moda'ani prayer. When a person begins their day declaring their connection with God, that's how they start their day. That demonstrates that all their good deeds throughout the day are for the sake of a mitzvah, connecting to God. This can be compared to the case of the husband who gave his wife a ring following a conversation about marriage that demonstrated his desire to connect his life with hers.
A man, not a husband.
Huh?
You said when a husband gives her a ring. You meant a man, if a man gives a woman a ring.
Yeah, did I say husband and wife?
You said that if the husband gives her a ring, then
Right. Sorry, I meant man and wife, man and woman. Thank you. That'd be very weird for a husband to be marrying a wife. This is the idea. Why is it when I do a mitzvah with no intent, zero intent? You know, I lost his wallet. Yeah. Why is it that when this person finds the wallet and they use the money to buy food, I did a mitzvah? What do you mean? I had no intention of doing a mitzvah. Because in the morning, there's this Moda'ani. The Moda'ani is a declaration of acknowledgement, not only thanking God, but it's also acknowledgement to ourselves, reminding ourselves of our connection with God. And that is the running theme throughout the day, that anytime we do a mitzvah, there's this backbone to every single act that we do, that I'm doing it to connect to God. Even if I'm not consciously thinking at the moment. But since this is the way I started my day, that's how it is. Now you're gonna have a question, what about people that don't say Moda'ani in the morning? We'll see in a second. Okay, Sandy, page 11, the Rebbe, an undermining proclamation. Please.
all right, but I have one question first.
Yeah,
You said, or it said in here, I think it also said in talking about divorce too.
yeah.
So if somebody's just talking about divorce, that just means that they're divorced.
So when I was talking, giving explanation, I said marriage and divorce are
Right.
important issues. This doesn't necessarily apply to divorce as well.
Oh, okay.
Divorce is extremely complicated in Jewish law. To write a bill of divorce it's a big to do. It's not a simple matter.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was a good question.
An undermining proclamation. This is a case only for positive mitzvot. For transgressions, however, if the person didn't expressly intend to violate a prohibition, the action isn't a transgression. Such a non-purposeful act is like a body without a soul. In addition, as a result of saying Modeh Ani and the like at the beginning of the day, we have at least a subconscious intent contrary to the transgression. All authorities, excuse me, all authorities, even those who maintain that mitzvot don't require intent, concede that if a person had a specific intention not to fulfill a mitzvah, they haven't fulfilled it. And the same should be true for transgressions. Intention not to transgress should mean that the act can't be considered a transgression.
Very good. Read source 8 as well. The Alter Rebbe's Code of Jewish Law.
Even according to those who say that mitzvot do not require intent to fulfill the obligation, nevertheless, if one explicitly intended not to fulfill their obligation, they certainly haven't fulfilled it against their will.
Thank you, Sandy. So Jewish law rules that one who does the act of a mitzvah, but explicitly in their mind wishes not to fulfill the mitzvah. I'm eating matzah on Passover and I'm not doing a mitzvah. I am not doing what God wants. I am just eating matzah. I don't want to have anything to do with a mitzvah. I don't know why somebody has such an intent, but let's say they did, theoretically. They have not done a mitzvah. This is the way it's ruled in Jewish law. Like the case of the person forced to eat matzah, theory, if he does so unwillingly, only because he was forced, he has fulfilled the mitzvah, because mitzvah do not require intent. However, if the person had explicitly in their mind, had in mind that when they eat the matzah, they will not be for the mitzvah, he has indeed not done a mitzvah. The Rebbe learns from this theoretical case where a person has expressed intent in their mind not to do a mitzvah while they're doing a mitzvah, and they have not fulfilled the mitzvah because of that. Learns the opposite is true as well. That a Jew's Modeh Ani prayer is a clear declaration that they want to be connected to God. Thus, even if they unintentionally transgress during the day, this shouldn't count as a transgression because they have an intent for the opposite. I wanted to share something before we continue, and I know what I want to say, but I'm not sure how to say it, how I'm going to explain it. So I'll just start talking and see what happens, right? A story you might be familiar with. There was a nation of people, might have heard of them, the Jewish people, heard of that? So they were in this country, this land called Egypt, for a couple hundred years, intense slavery, backbreaking labor, awful conditions. And God sent this guy, Moses, our first leader, to take us out of Egypt. And by the way, there's a misconception. If everyone watches the movies about these biblical stories, and for this particular story, the famous line was the famous line. Moses comes to Pharaoh. What does he say?
Let my people go.
Let my people go. Right? It's not what it says. It's a misconception. Right? That's what they say. But if you look in the Torah, it's missing a crucial point. Actually, Moses comes to Pharaoh and says, "Shalach et ami, send my people. Let my people go." Right? There's another word there. Shalach et ami v'ya'avduni. God is saying through Moses to Pharaoh, "Let my people go and serve me." Okay, it's an important point. Just it's a side point. Either way, so we come out of Egypt, we go through the desert a little bit, 49 days until we get to Mount Sinai. We're so excited. We're finally going to build this incredible connection with God. We're going to get the Torah. And there's a whole preparation thing going on. Moses goes up the mountain a little bit. He comes back down. He tells the people to get ready. That you should, get ready in your thought, your speech, your action. Don't, pick yourselves up a little bit. Don't be so mundane. You're about to get the Torah from God Himself. And it was at this time, before we got the Torah. So it's printed in the book. We made this declaration. 2 words. Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do. I'm going to translate literally first. We will do, and we will hear. What it really means is we will do, then we will understand. Okay. It's at that point that we dedicated ourselves to God, and that when God gave us the Torah, He dedicated Himself to us. That we are going to act, and then we're going to understand. We're going to do the mitzvahs. We're going to follow His. We're going to do His will. We're going to learn His Torah, do His mitzvahs, hopefully under all conditions, and hopefully positive conditions. And once we're already doing, then we will try to understand to the best of our ability. But the act is not contingent on the understanding. We don't understand first. God, let me get this thing first about the Shabbos. You want me to not light a fire? Okay, why not? Okay, let me learn about this more and more. Okay, wait, I didn't fully understand. Okay, I'm not gonna do this yet. I'm not gonna follow what you say first. No, the Jewish way is to first act and then understand. Again, but they're God's commandments, the God's infinite will. We can't fully understand, but we can understand to the best of our ability. So, therefore, one who is doing a certain mitzvahs, they're doing Jewish practice, they're doing what a Jew is supposed to do. There's different ways to do it. You can do it with feeling, with love, with energy, with excitement, awe, or you can do it because that's what I do. You know, that's just what I do. You know, why do you do this? Whatever. It's just what I do. No intent. Nah. Does that mean anything? The answer is yes. We have the intention. The intention is there. We had it when we said Moda'ani in the morning. We declared and reminded ourselves and brought out to the fore our connection with God. And that's the backbone for the entire day's performance of mitzvahs. I read a story just this week, actually. It's actually connected with this whole topic. Apparently, there's a guy, he's a real person, but the story hid his name because they didn't want to be public, who did not grow up doing any mitzvahs at all. Jewish guy. You know, didn't keep Shabbos, didn't, from my understanding, didn't fast on Yom Kippur, didn't keep kosher, didn't anything. The one thing, back up a second, this is a guy who worked in stocks, who's a stock market, but like his stock market took up his entire life. Woke up early in the morning, went to sleep late at night, he sit in front of a computer the entire day, all different screens, watching everything that's going on, you know, playing the game. You know, and he'd eat lunch like while he's working, like looking at the screen on, like, you know, that's how his life operated. The one thing his family did, well, I think he was raised, Passover. It's coming up. Passover, they ate matzah. They ate matzah. Why do you eat matzah Passover? Because we eat matzah Passover. What's the difference? That's what we do, family tradition. I don't know. That's how he felt. So he did not go on the first 2 days of Passover. It's a holiday. It's a quick explanation. Passover is 8 days long. Okay, the first 2 days and the last 2 days are like a regular holiday. It's like kind of like Shabbos, like work shouldn't be done, and you go to synagogue and things like that. And the intermediate days are not as explicitly holy, let's call it like that. So the first 2 days of the holiday of Passover, this guy didn't do anything. He didn't go to synagogue. He was at work. He was dealing with stocks as usual. I think it was the second day of Passover, actually, that this happened. He had just recently heard through the grapevine somehow that it's actually an important thing to eat matzah, not just on the first night of Passover by the Seder, but throughout the entire Passover. So it's just a thought that he something maybe read it on the internet somewhere, which is true. That's the reality. It's a mitzvah to eat the matzah on the first and second nights of Passover by the Seder. It's 2 Seders, by the way. And the rest of Passover, it's a very important, special thing to actually. It's not a mitzvah. It's not a commandment, but it's a special thing to eat matzah throughout the holiday. This guy heard this, so he made lunch in the morning. What do you make for lunch? Bacon. Bacon not kosher. But he had this thought in his head. He remembered learning this the other day. So he haphazardly just grabbed some matzah. He thought it was, why not? Grabbed some matzah because it was Passover. He had them in his house. And he brought it with him to work. Now, a Jew should not be going to work on Passover. A Jew should not be eating bacon ever. And a slew of other things. He might have been, look, he was doing something wrong. You know, I'm not saying he's a bad person, just like the things that he shouldn't have been doing. However, he sat down by lunch. And he was involved in the stocks. He wasn't doing anything. He wasn't involved in anything else. He wasn't paying attention to anything else. He made lunch. He grabbed his bacon. Oh, I brought matzah with me. Great idea. Grabbed 2 pieces of matzah, made a matzah bacon sandwich. You find something like this is like a horrible combination. It's just like goodness and opposite in one sandwich, and he ate it. He's doing something good. He's doing something bad. He's eating matzah, but he's eating bacon. It's like a weird combination. The reality is that this simple act, years down the line, was the basis and the thing that tipped the scales that started projecting him in a different direction in life. Because from that day, he probably can't explain it. He started doing more mitzvahs. He started getting more interested. He wanted to learn more. He wanted to understand what does it mean to be a Jew. What is it? There's this thing called Torah. I've heard about it. I never learned about it. He started attending classes. He started learning. He wanted more and more. All because of a simple matzah bacon sandwich, right? No. Should he have been eating bacon? No. Did he intend to eat matzah for a good reason? No. He ate it with bacon. He wanted it because it tastes good to him, maybe. The reality is he ate matzah without intent, and it's a good thing. In heaven, they looked at this guy and they said, ooh, that's special. Forget about the bacon for a second. That's special. Okay. What about the guys? Guaranteed this guy in the story, I think the story's name was Josh, did not say Modani that morning. If all he knew was matzah, he definitely didn't know Modani. So where was his backbone? Where was the thing that was driving the intent throughout the day? It wasn't there, seemingly. Says the Rebbe, it was there too. Let's see. I'll read this part. Page 12. Even without Modani, this is not ideal, but there is, even for those people who are not yet saying Modani in the morning, there's something there. Let's see. There's still a point that requires further clarification. The laws that mitzvot don't require intent and that unintended transgressions aren't punishable are true for all Jews, even those that didn't begin the day with an act of connection to God and didn't even say Modani. Why does the aforementioned difference between positive mitzvot and transgressions apply to such a Jew as well? The truth is that each and every, this is very important, listen closely. The truth is that each and every Jew deep in their soul wishes to do good. This desire may be subconscious. Well, by the way, we're saying good here, we don't mean being a nice person. That's also included in this, but good in this case means doing mitzvahs, learning Torah, following our traditions. This desire may be subconscious, but it is still a practical reality. So it renders the person occupied in this manner. It's a halachic a term in Jewish law. This can be compared to a law concerning sacrifices in the temple, that even if the Kohanim lack the required intent while offering the sacrifices, quote, the rabbinic court imposes the intent on them. Since at our core, we all wish to follow the instructions of the courts. The court doesn't mean the civil court here in Erie or the federal court, Jewish court, the Jewish Torah court, the court of sages that are ruling on Jewish law. Since at our core, we wish to follow the instructions of the court, their imposition of intent is effective and is considered as if the Kohanim themselves have the proper intent. This is why mitzvot don't require intent, because every Jew is considered to be occupied in this matter. Every single Jew has this intent deep down in their, in Yiddish you'd say in their kishkas. It's down in their gut. It's deeper than that. Even if they don't have a conscious idea about it, even if they didn't say Modani, every Jew at their core, they have this connection to God that can't be broken, it can't be touched, it can't be messed with, and it's always there. As a result, this forges a connection with God. The connection is akin to the initial erusin stage of marriage, which is in Jewish law is the first stage of marriage, and it will eventually lead to the final stage of nisuin, which is the final stage of marriage. As the verse states regarding the Jewish people and God in the Messianic era, on that day you shall call me my man and not just my husband. May we merit this speedily in our days. Questions, comments? As I always say, jokes. Anybody?